Hello, everyone. Welcome to this very interesting panel discussion on the topic Rewriting the Rules of Market Engagement. For all those who've been following us are aware of the Smart HR series, Dispersed Yet Connected, we are doing in partnership with Right Management. This is the fourth episode in the series. And before I set the context of today's discussion, I would like to introduce the speakers to all of you. Sabah Adil, CPO at Raija QB General Insurance Company. Shalabh Gupta, Sales Head West, Vedantu. Prashant Pandey, Country Manager India, Right Management. I would now like to welcome the audience too. Thank you for being here. You can use the chat tab on your screen to ask a question. The speakers will be more than happy to take all your questions. Now, the context of today's chat. With the world of work evolving, market engagement rules are also shifting significantly. While organizations continue to drive innovation and change, it is also strongly driven by changing consumer behavior. Given the events of the last 10 to 12 months, the speed of change is driving many successful organizations to relook their market engagement strategies, while others are still struggling to come to terms. Today, in this panel discussion, our focus will be on redefining market engagement and articulating the characteristics, skills, and attributes prerequisite to employees in this industry. Welcome all of you to this discussion. And now my first question is to Sabah. Sabah, how has the market expectations changed in past 1 year in your industry? What steps are you taking to evolve your sales engines?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, so to answer your question, I'll speak from an insurance perspective. See, insurance is always construed as a complex product full of jargons. The buying process also has forms, documents, signatures that are needed. Customer demand is, of course, one of simplification in understanding the product and the language, easing out the buying journey in a very seamless manner in a digital way, and providing service as needed during product maturity or claims. So, with the pandemic situation last year, demands for being present where a customer wants you to be present has only increased. And that's what we're increasingly seeing with customers. One of the good things that has happened is that digital modes of buying and servicing has also seen an increase. Just to internalize that into the organization, we've made several changes to cater to customer expectations through being digitally connected with our customers and clients through outcalling. We've also conducted several engagement webinars to make the process of buying simple through digital policy payments through various modes which the customer is comfortable with. And we've also made the service engine pretty efficient, through first-time call pickup in our call center, quick resolution of queries raised. Apart from that, we also reimagined the entire claim registration and settlement process to make it easy and efficient for our customers because, that's the moment of truth for customers. So all in all, a number of steps we've taken to stay tuned to connect and service our customers in the best manner we can.
Thank you, Sabah. Great insights from you. And the thing is about staying connected and being very prompt in, answering to customers' queries. Shalabh, what about your industry, education, edtech, which is also a very upcoming industry?
We have, over the last 1 year, we have evolved so much. One, that we now have to reach multiple consumers at different point of times. So the kid is available at some other point of time. The parents are available at some other point of time. And we have to bring them together, showcase a service, because we are a service company. We are not a product company. We are doing live classes. When I say live classes, we are doing classes where a kid is just attending somebody like a school and going through his syllabus. And that is where the moment of truth is. So the idea is to engage those consumers, help them understand what the product and service will be. So there's a high level of digital engagement from day one, the moment a consumer comes on our platform. And the best part is that we offer them a lot of modules through which he can understand how the service works. Then we have our own digitally enabled platform, Wave, which is very, very interactive. That is one of the cusp of our entire offering, where it feels like that you're in a classroom, where it looks like a board, where we have multiple ways to engage a student in terms of answering questions, in terms of raising doubts, in terms of reaching out to teachers. That is one. Secondly, the moment we are able to give him where he stands in terms of percentile with different types of students across the country. That is one. We have different modules to fit his consumer journey, so he can choose from one module to another. He can change his class timings. So all these things have happened over a period of last 1 year. Secondly, the engagement journey has become much more easier. When I say much more easier, we are now totally a digitally enabled platform in terms of how do we make payments, and it's a click of a button move. So you can go on our platform, you can choose a service. If you want to attend to a service call, you can request for a timing, and you can go ahead and do the calls. The only thing uh, that is still there, that because people have always been in an offline mode of education, this is new to them. Adaptability is a concern that is there. So we are growing very fast. We grow almost 30 to 40% in a month in terms of customer acquisition. Only challenge that we face is adaptability. So many of the people drop out because of adaptability issues. Secondly, their ability to understand the internet. So internet awareness in India in tier 2 or tier 3 towns is still very, very low among the parent base. Maybe the kids are very much enthusiastic about it. The second part, the second problem that we face is the apprehensions from the parents about what the kids will do on the internet. So if you go to tier 2, tier 3 towns, one is the expense on education, the second is the expense on teaching, and the third is the expense on how do they manage their kid when he is doing his classes. So all these apprehensions are there, but we are working on it. So, for example, now we have a set parameter when the classes are going on, you cannot change the window or there is a notification going to the parent that is there. So multiple engagement things that have happened. We have come up with multiple partners to make the consumer journey financially more affordable. And we have added a lot of flavor in terms of what the kid wants to do. When I say what a kid wants to do, so we have programs starting from 4 year old till a person reaches his 12th class, or even if he has a dropout year, he has specific programs through which he can go and learn. So those are the changes that have happened over a period of time. We are adding more and more boards. So, for example, last year we added the Maharashtra board. This year we will be adding more boards to drive more flavor, because not everybody is into ICSE or CBSE. So these are the flavors and changes that we are doing. We are very sure about what type of uh, teachers we are putting in to make our platform very strong and interactive. Secondly, the most important thing that we have done over a period of time is that using AI and ML techniques, we've been able to understand what are the main doubts or questions or queries that a kid raises while he's going through a class. And that becomes a storyline over a period of time. And many of the things go in that 45 minutes or 1 hour class and helps a student. So it's become very, very easy. And with the type of teacher support that we have, it is essentially doing very well.
Thank you, Shalabh, for sharing those insights. Prashant, because you are also helping various industries evolve their search engines, and you are helping them out how to streamline their sales processes and keep up to date with the current consumer habits. So, what would your insights be on this?
Thank you, Pooja, and thank you, Sabha and Salab, for giving such a wonderful insight in terms of what's happening specifically in your industry. Yes, and I think what we are seeing is very interesting in terms of everything that has been said is all relevant. But from a preparation point of view, in terms of every industry is doing, if you see a common thread in terms of what every organization is doing in terms of prepping up their customer acquisition engine. One thing that I constantly see being spoken about by head of sales or everybody is that the awareness and centralization of the changes happening in their customer ecosystem, like Shalabh mentioned, in terms of students, parents, and that behavior. Now, the sales engine that you have has to be very aware and they really need to be sensitized in terms of the change happening, because when they interact with their target audience, and they could be buyers or influencers, they need to be aware why they behave the way they behave, right? So that becomes extremely important. Now, once that sensitization and awareness comes in, then it comes in terms of, you need to reorient them in terms of the new ways of working. So Sabha mentioned in terms of how a lot of new digital tools are being introduced into the entire cycle, the various touch points that you would have. Now, the sales teams really need to be reoriented in terms of the new ways of working, because the decision-making cycles are changing, the way decisions are. There are new influencers that are coming into picture. So what's the new way of working is something that the sales team really need to be reoriented on. Third thing that I constantly see is every industry now has multiple channels coming in, and one constant channel is the new digital channels that are coming in. Now, so the new digital tools like various apps, etc., that come in, especially in the financial services industry, right? How do you calculate insurance? And now there's a lot of focus in terms of personalization, understanding the customer and make it slightly more personalized. Now, the salesperson, either it is happening through the digital channel, or even if there's a physical touch point, that moment of truth, that experience becomes extremely critical. So how do you use those new digital tools becomes a big factor. The fourth constant thing that I see across industry is that organizations are saying that my sales managers, the way they do sales planning, they look at their territories, the way they approach the market, that completely needs to be reoriented. Their old paradigms are not going to work anymore. So the sales manager's orientation is a constant thing that we see organizations speak about, right? So just to sum up, the various, the sensitization, the various tools, the moments of truth in terms of what happens at each touch point, and the sales manager's reorientation. These are things that I'm constantly seeing across industries, sir.
Thanks, Prashant. So, as a consumer, my patience level has really gone down. So, Shalabh and Sabha, when your salespeople are coming to me and, telling me about your maybe education program or your insurance, they get only one chance to impress me. So, because of which it's very important for them to have certain skill sets which will make them convert their conversations into actual sales. So, what are the kind of skill sets do you think these new age salespeople must have? Sabha, maybe you can share your point first, and then we'll go to Shalabh.
Yeah. So yes, Pooja, you very rightly said it, that the customer wants solution at one step. And the ask of the customer who's connecting with a frontline person is just one step connection, resolution. So therefore, it's imperative that these roles are empowered with the data, information, and solution that are needed to service the customer then and there. They don't have the patience to wait, like you rightly said. And this is, very simple to say, but, in an insurance parlance and in ecosystem, there are nuances of several systems, whether it's the core or the front end. And to make that data available, RQBA, our organization, has taken several system integration projects to make customer information available with the frontline to equip them to answer the queries that are there. So that's one aspect, that, how do you answer queries at just one go and not make the customer wait or do a to-fro here and there. Apart from this, employee skilling is imperative. And we've taken several initiatives to invest in talent to make them relevant to customer requirements. So things like, very simple things like skilling, not only the sales, but the call center and claims, which is like all the customer touch points with product knowledge on the functional side, and carrying out several interventions to up the empathy quotient, because that is very important. You have to understand the customer pain points, very rightly what Prashant said, and then devise the right solution on the behavioral side as well, right? So functional side one way, but behavioral side to understand, empathize, draw up solutions, understand what the customer is saying to solve the right problem. Because one says, okay, fine, this is what I'm solving, that's what I'm solving. But will the solution actually solve the problem of the customer? That therefore very important to pick up the trends that are coming from customer conversation. And for that, empathy is very much needed. Of course, it's important to align workforce to listen to customers, understand pain points and expectations as well. So that's what I would say, all in a nutshell: functional, behavioral, empathy. Every way you have to equip your customers, because frontline is where the test of a company lies in. because they're the ones who are connecting with the customers first time.
Thank you, Sabha. Shalabh?
The way Prashant said, lot of automation is coming into play. And Sabha rightly said that how do we skill our people, support our people? So skilling is one part that has come into play. Second part is because of automation, many of these people, even young kids, they are seeing many of these tools as a first time. First, there is a challenge in terms of that these are tools to help and support you, not to monitor you. That is one clarity that needs to be given, because the moment it comes that it is a tool to see or to monitor you, then it becomes a failure. Secondly, the support system. So let's example, we have a 24-hour help desk system in terms of how to handle real-time customer queries if they come up. So we have a 24-hour helpline, which is always available. That is one. Secondly, we for our sales team, for the consumer, there's a separate helpline. So when I say helpline, there's a wavelength that is our internal platform through which you can resolve queries through our 24-hour customer support team. Secondly, we have a 24-hour training link that is there. So we have different modules that go on at different point of time. We have cultivated a culture where people can do videos and we judge the best videos from those and we share it with the whole sales team and we reward that guy. When I say reward that guy, it is not a monetary reward, it is a recognition reward that we give him. So there are multiple changes in terms of how we are engaging with the sales force. The one part that we are facing right now, the challenge, when we say challenge is automation. Obviously, without automation, when you are in a work from home scenario, it becomes very difficult to manage a workforce as large as we have. Today, we have around 4,000 odd people when we talk about the number of people that those who are working from work from home. And this number will double in the next 3 to 4 months. So that is one challenge that we are facing because many of the automation tools are not very much accepted by the sales team. But that challenge will always be there. And the only way to do it is by constant training and supporting the sales team to engage using those tools and services.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Shalabh. Prashant?
Yeah. So you're right. I think, Pooja, your observation is the customer is extremely impatient. The window that you have is very short and it's a make or break moment for you. So it's a high pressure game. Sales, we all need to understand business acquisition is a high pressure game, right? And before the conversation started, Sava mentioned, how competitive, especially financial services industries is becoming with so many players coming in. So it's a very short window that the salesperson has to really make a mark. And now you have multiple other challenges that, the touch point is taken away from the equation. Right now, the digital experience becomes extremely critical. How do you engage with the person digitally? And in my mind, what I've seen is probably you need to have a bit of a slightly more broad-based approach in terms of, for example, when I interact with a lot of sales teams, one of the things that I clearly see is their awareness of the sales strategy and their alignment around it. At times you find it wanting, because please understand, sales is so many times it's more attitudinal. So that attitude, that resilience that that a salesperson really needs to bring in will come in when the person is aware about what we intend to do and they are emotionally connected with the sales strategy and the vision, right? So probably my two bit would be is for your salesperson to, that's where you would need to start, right? And then second thing comes in terms of from a process point of view, right? Especially large distributed sales force. So what's our way of selling, right? That clearly needs to be articulated so that there's a consistent experience at every touch point. So that becomes extremely critical. Now layer it with the new processes where you used to use channels like digital channel for selling. So that brings in an additional pressure, right? So the what's my way of selling, what's my organization way of selling, and articulating that and everybody following that process becomes extremely critical. Then comes in the element in terms of, again, the whole concept of personalizing, so your ability to capture data, and Shalabh also mentioned it in terms of, the whole technology, you capturing data and analyzing the data so that your conversation becomes that much more meaningful, that much more personal to the target that you are, to the target audience that you're speaking to. That becomes extremely critical. And then, of course, hiring and skilling the right people. Into today's day and age, probably every organization really needs to relook at the success profiles, right? Then how do you go beyond training, right? If you want to really, we want your sales guys to have, so it's not about training them. Yes, it is important, but then how do you ensure observation, feedback on field, and giving that feedback back to the person? And in that context, the role of the manager, can the manager be the sales coach, for example? That becomes extremely important. So in my mind, if you really need to, and this is across industries, this is not about any specific industry, and the form and format may change for every, if you're in a B2B or a B2C, or you're selling to channel, but all these points would be relevant in some form or the other, is what my 2-bit would be, Pooja.
Thank you, Prashant. And I really understand that technology is playing a key role. All the data that you receive helps you to further sharpen your sales engine and, teach them, guide them, and come up with great decisions. But how important is your organization's vision, the narrative? How important is that to prepare your sales force? I mean, how can we connect an organization's long-term vision with what the sales force is actually selling in the market? Is there a connection that one can draw to, connect or, make them feel purposeful towards doing what they need to do? So your business story with your sales story.
So you're asking me, Pooja?
Yes, Prashant, you and Shalabh.
Okay.
So maybe Prashant, you can start first and then Shalabh can follow.
So again, I think I'll pick up from what I said earlier. You're absolutely right. That emotional connect and that belief around the product or service that you're taking to the market is so much important. So the point that you made in terms of, that connect to the vision of the organization, and the sales vision and the sales strategy that you have becomes extremely critical. So that alignment of the sales engine to focus on certain areas, that needs to be very clear. So again, the sales engine needs to be very clear on why we do what we chose to do and why we are not doing what we decided not to do. That clarity is immense, because everything that becomes the base on which you build everything. So, your clear articulation of what's my promise to my customer, right? That becomes so much important for every salesperson to imagine. Understanding and articulation in terms of the customer experience at each touch point, be it physical or through digital platforms, even if there is a hybrid where there's some amount of it's completely off person experience, that customer experience clearly needs to be defined, and how do you then execute it on the ground becomes extremely critical. And when there's a physical touch, articulating the way of your way of selling. And then at the end of the day, it's about being agile, right? So being very quick. How is the system agile? Listening to the customer, understanding what the customer feedback and is feeding it back into the system, and then adapting it very quickly. I think these elements become extremely important. So to your point, Pooja, just to sum it up, I think this whole piece where your vision of the organization flows very clearly into the sales strategy. But again, it cannot be only in the books. It needs to translate right up to the front line. And that articulation, alignment, emotional connect becomes so much important.
Thank you, Prashant. Very interesting. Shalabh, the same question for you. And here, I would just like to add on one more point, is that over this 1 year, because of this sudden, lockdown and internet becoming the mainstream for students to study, did you have to further modify your sales goals because of the change in scenario from the time you started and in the last 1 year?
So I will come to the third question later on.
Okay.
But the most important part is that the sales team has to understand what we are selling, and that comes from the organization vision. That is one clear cut. And then we have to communicate it constantly. So, for example, town halls and seniors talking to each and every person of the team, so that the communication is very clear. Secondly, as the way Prashant said, that the entire sales cycle has to be consistent. So the consumer, whenever he comes on the platform, he sees the same way or the same thing that is happening to him to bring that belief and confidence into him. So those are two things. And the third important part, you are doing the first two part very well. The third important part with the sales team is how consistently you are sharing the information. So when I say this, I'm saying transparency in terms of MISs, in terms of how they are performing, in terms of what is the consumer score for the sales that is happening, how is the attendance taking place. So when I say attendance in this piece is that other so many industries will have different ways of looking at it. So for us, attendance is one of the main goals that we look at it. So how do consumers are consuming post the purchase becomes a very, very important. And that transparency has to go to the sales team for improvement. That is one. Now coming to the third part, obviously we have grown. So for example, we were 1,000 odd people last January. Today we are around 4,000 odd people. So we have consistently grown in terms of consumer engagement. When I say consumer engagement, we have a lot of people those who come to our platform to understand how we work, what we do. Secondly, the choices have become immense. So when it is not so that we are the only people those who are doing it. So there are many people those who are known within the city, those who started doing it. So we have to build that belief and we have to re-engage and refocus on how and what we are doing with our consumers. So the targets have been redefined, even the service levels have been redefined, even the way we share information with the consumers and the sales team both has been redefined to a lot of extent. Let me put it this way. We are a real-time sales organization. You punch in a sales and it is reflected. And your ranking can change from, for example, 100 to 10th, depending upon the value of sale that you do. And it's all real time. It's not happening that it is happening 1 hour lag or 2 hour lag. It's all happening real time. And that is where the engagement rises. And that is where a lot of recognition happen and people start believing in themselves. People start believing in the product. So there has to be a lot of constant communication in this scenario. So automation is good only when communication is happening. It cannot happen in isolation. The moment it starts happening in isolation, and it cannot happen through WhatsApp also. It has to be constant communication. When I say, for example, today we are doing a meet to help people understand what has changed. Similarly, we have to do these constant communication with our sales team to help them understand what we are doing, how we are changing, what we are, how we are supporting them. What is the support? We have to also articulate the way Prashant said, what is required out of them very, very consistently, and it has to be very, very constant. As a sales leader, I always feel that it's not a one-time job. You have to do it every morning. It is a ritual that you have to do. Whether it be B2B or whether it be B2C, the rules of engagement with your sales team remain the same.
Thank you, Shalabh. Very interesting. Sabha, coming to you, coming as you're coming from HR, you have to create employee experiences alike for every employee in the organization. But at the same time, like how we're discussing the sales function at this point of time, so there is a direct connection between the kind of experiences that you're creating for them in the organization. The same will translate as the experiences they create for their customers. So how are you helping your sales function to, really put their best foot forward when they are attending to the customers?
Sure. Yeah, so fully agree with you that an organization cultural fabric is very important because that then translates to a customer experience. And an employee proposition and customer proposition are part of the same coin. So for us, we are embedding our values of what we stand for as an organization at every step of the employee life cycle, whether it is recruitment, career development, planning, performance management. And as we reimagine our customer journeys, we are also reimagining our employee journeys just through the right experiences. So example, even during pandemic, and again, we're a very small organization, we reorganized ourselves very quickly to ensure that the new joinees that were joining during the lockdown had the enablers they needed even before they joined in. Small things like laptop being delivered at native places, wherever employees were, just to, and ensuring that, virtual inductions happened for all with no exceptions. Now, these are, of course, HR things, but if you And these are employee things, but very important because that is how it translates to then the consumer experiences as well. Employee onboarding with regular manager conversations, all were happening as people joined in. With employee care at its core, we rolled out several health and immunity building programs as well, very, very customized and personalized to employees. And amidst the pandemic, we also rolled out an innovation tournament through Open the Floor for ideation for all the sales folks. And through peer voting, we awarded the most innovative ideas which were then worked on. So the intent was to drive the right cultural tenets. And if you live your culture well, this transmits and translates further, aligning to your customer proposition. So an employee journey is very, very important, as is a customer journey. That's what we fully believe in.
Thank you, Sabha. Prashant, your thoughts on this? How important is employee experience to create great customer experience?
Thank you. And I think there's also a question. I was reading one question in terms of, how do you framework to suggest a healthy handshake of employee experience to customer experience? I mean, at this point of time, I am remembered of a book, and probably a lot of you would have read it, employees first, customers second, right? And in my mind, you can't segregate the two. One leads to the other, So if you want to give a certain experience to your customer, digital, definitely, if you're talking about a completely digital experience, great. But post acquisition also, right? So there would be certain industry where there has to be a bit of a touch point. And that experience is a direct factor of how your employee engages with the customer. And that is a direct factor in terms of how engaged or how emotionally connected the employee is with the organization and the vision, and and how strongly you believe, how much are you in love with your own product or service, right? So one leads to the other. One is the cause, the other is the effect. You cannot segregate the two. And absolutely, Sabha said it absolutely correctly. I mean, take care of your employees who are ultimately responsible to create a certain experience pre-acquisition, post-acquisition for your customers, and that will be a natural outcome.
Thank you, Prashant. Like we've said that everything has changed. So even the attributes that a salesperson require to have in the, just before last 1 year has also changed dramatically. So what are some of the most important traits, attributes, characteristics today's salesperson requires to have? Be it like the ones who are just joining in freshly or the ones that are 3 to 4 years old. And the ones that are 3 to 4 years old will have to first unlearn and then learn the new methods of selling, because the old methods probably will not work now. So which is again another challenge. So how are you kind of managing both these sides of your sales people? Shalabh, would you like to take that?
Very interesting. So when you say the most important thing that we have seen is adaptability to automation. That is one challenge. I think so. The other things remain more or less when you say discipline, integrity, uh, pulling in your work time together, reporting, all these things have always remained the same. The one constant change, because when I say constant change, automation is something that is changing every day. So, for example, when we started automating our workforce 5 months back, today when we see the level of automation that we have is constantly changing every 10 to 12 days or 15 days because of the nature of services that our partners are giving us and the upgradations that are happening. So one important thing that is there is how do people tend to deliver on automation. Second is their learning ability, because we are a constantly, so for example, let me just give you an example. So now people are moving to new grades. Till now we are talking about revision courses or stuff like that. Now that itself is a change because the price list has changed. Okay. So we are a constantly changing company and we have a very young workforce. That is one plus point that we have. And the important thing that we see is that once a person is able to work constantly through automation, he's able to work on other things very well. The only thing that drives him away is automation, okay, because he sees it as the way I said is monitoring. Otherwise, once his adaptability is there, it becomes much more easier for everybody, be it be old or be it be new. And that is the way it is. That is the way we look at it.
Thank you, Shalabh. Sabha, coming to you, if you were hiring for your sales function, what are the kind of, how would your JD look like, and what are the traits you are going to look for in hiring your employees?
Yeah, I would say, functional skills can be learned, and, one can learn it in an organization. But aspects like, that I would place higher would be things like problem solving, empathy, learnability, like you rightly said, the unlearn, relearn quotient, service orientation. I think those are the things and aspects that I would look at when I'm hiring people for the role. And yes, one can look at new ways to reach to the right, talent pool. Very important to get the right talent pool in. And yeah, digital helps quite a bit in that. But I think from an attribute perspective, things have dramatically changed from getting people more into, not so much into functional knowledge and skills, but more on the behavioral side, because they are the ones whom you can then groom. They are the talent of the organization whom you can look from a long term. Also, the shift also has to be from a short term saying, okay, fine, I need people to fill a position in. It's more in terms of long term. How do we actually get the talent to reach potential? And that can only happen when you have the right, you've done the right hiring in terms of the attribute skill that is needed for your organization from a behavioral side as well. So that's what I would say, I feel as a change moving more towards the behavioral side of things.
Thank you, Sabha. Prashant, your thoughts?
So skills that you'll watch out for, one critical element, of course, is your ability to sell in a remote. I mean, just imagine about this platform right now. If all of us simply switch off our cameras, the whole dynamics will change. And this is the reality that sales guys face. I mean, we face that reality, right? You're in the final stage of a pitch, and then you're meeting very key decision makers. And on the other side, the I personally feel the quality of the conversation is very different if everybody has the cameras on, right? And or the cameras are off, right? So that becomes a dynamic. So your ability to engage becomes extremely critical in my mind. The second thing that I'm realizing is, a sales guy, a person's ability to expand the networks. Today, influencers, more and more influencers are coming into picture. The way you will approach a customer is becoming, it's not a direct, or it's always a direct that you get, a line of sight with the decision maker. So a salesperson's ability to expand their network, their networking, I mean, it was always important, but I think in today's day and age, it is much, much more critical in my mind. Using of digital tools, platforms, as an enabler to sell remotely, something that I think all of us have already spoken about. The other thing that I think is very critical is the role of the sales manager and the way it is transforming, right? So the whole quotient, the ways managers, the business acquisition managers going about doing the sales planning, the coaching hat that they need to wear. I think that is because the whole sales engine is going through a transformation. Customers' behaviors are changing. The pressure that is there, because organizations are also figuring out. The entire organization is in a transformation mode. Engines are in a transformation mode. With all that flux, the role that, when it's a steady state, the manager's role is important. But if it is a bit of a fluid state that the organization, the external market is in, then the role, because that's where the anchoring happens. So the sales manager's role, and if I am hiring for the sales manager, the ability of a sales manager, uh, his or her ability to wear that coaching hat, where he or she becomes an anchor to hold the team together, becomes extremely important. And then few things which are always evergreen, always constant, your attitudinal elements, which are your resilience, your focus, your discipline. I think that has already been spoken about. So multiple things, but in a nutshell, I think when things are in a fluid state, certain things, assume a bit more importance than when things are in a very steady state.
Thank you, Prashant. My next question is, the traditional methods of giving incentives to the sales people obviously has gone through a change also now. So what are the new methods of giving incentives and, kind of expanding your R&R to help salespeople feel more motivated to go beyond their potential? Shalabh, maybe we could start with you and then I'll move to Sabha.
Rightly said. One, uh, two things have become very, very important. One, how are people being recognized? So more than incentivization, because when you're sitting in an office, you can be recognized in front of 100 people. Now, when you're not sitting in office, you have to be recognized. You have to be made felt very important, or you have to be made feel good about what you have done. So recognition has started playing a very big role. So you have to run a program which may not be related to monetary, but has to be related to how visible you are in the organization. How are people recognizing you? Are people knowing you by name? That is one. Secondly, if you are recognized, is the organization taking your help or support in devising something new which can be held or shared with other people? So, for example, the way I said that we're creating videos of the best sales guys and putting it across to people, and people are commenting on that. That itself is a very, very motivational tool. The third part is that, so when you're driving the sales team, one is that the monthly incentives, those are regular parts to it. The other thing is that when you have to drive certain initiatives and behavior, but earlier we never used to incentivize people on behavior. Now it has become very important and imperative that we start incentivizing people on behavior also. So when I say behavior, or not only behavior with the workforce, but also behavior with the consumer. So when I say with the consumer, so all these, so we have to look into matrix as to, we have to look into different matrix and define them for the sales team as to how they will be incentivized. So the basic shift that has happened is how are we recognizing people? How are we incentivizing people in terms of their consumer interaction and their behavioral interaction internally? The third part is the growth expectations from the set of people who are joining the organization has become very, very high. So there has to be a career path orientation that is taking place. So we have clear matrix in terms of how the career grooming will happen. So, for example, a 3-month program, a 6 months program, a 9-month program. So all those programs are there. You have to nominate yourself for those programs, and there are specific metrics and trainings that you go through. And once you qualify, you're onboarded at that new role. So there are multiple things that are happening, and these are multiple interventions that never used to happen earlier in such a format. So obviously the shift has happened in terms of how we are communicating. So my basic take is the biggest challenge that anybody of us faces communication with our sales team on a regular basis. So that communication is something that we are looking at.
Sabha, your thoughts on R&R?
Yeah, I think Shalabh's explained it very well in terms of a holistic metric of recognition. I'll just add on to it. R&R needs to very clearly align with the organization objectives, and something that Prashant also touched upon, and the company values and ethos. And when we talk of organization performance, are those metrics really understood by the front line? So if we say that, organization performance, does it have the balanced connotations? Again, what Shalabh touched upon, things like, the top line, the bottom line, quality metrics of customer, employee. When we say we care about the customer, is customer NPS as a score? I'm just saying as an example, it can be any metric the organization is looking at in the goal sheet from top to bottom. Everyone has to have it, right? And all the programs that are there, then whether it's performance management, your reward recognition, your engagement, your people getting into key projects, have to be all talking to those metrics. But those metrics need to be very well defined and measured well, because it's very important that we are measuring the right things as well. So I would just add on to what Shalabh said and say that metric tracking and the KPI needs to be very clear just from top to bottom, and everyone should be understanding in the same manner as it's understood across the organization, or what the organization wants to drive its objectives.
Thank you, Sabha. Prashant, your thoughts?
So I'll keep it very brief. Everything, more or less has been covered up. Three elements, the what, how, and who about R&R. So what are you watching out for? What are you recognizing and what are you rewarding? How are you rewarding? Is it money, or what Shalabh mentioned today, in today's day and age, investing on career that, becomes extremely help creating opportunities for reskilling becomes extremely. And third is whom do you reward? Because in today's, the way the sales models and the sales engines and the channels are emerging, whom are you rewarding becomes an extremely important, because in a traditional sales, frontline sales manager, but today there are multiple players who are coming into the game. So whom are you rewarding is also something that needs to be thought through, and then it becomes very specific to the industry and the business model that you are operating in. For example, the what Sabha will come out as an R&R will obviously be very different from what Shalabh will have in his organization. For example, in an automotive company, then it becomes very specific to the business model. But these are the questions that you would need to think through. What are you rewarding? How are you rewarding? And whom you are rewarding? So those are the things that you need to think through.
Thank you, Prashant. Lots of questions are coming from audience. I'll take a few questions now. Sabha, there's a question for you. What is your approach to drive disproportionate growth in the new age fintech sector in the given territory? That's what the question says.
Sure. Digital clearly is emerging big time. So that's a trend that we see for sure. And earlier, customers were still hesitant on the digital way of especially acquisition and sales in the fintech space, because in the financial space, rather, because products are complex and all. But we see with the pandemic, it's all accelerated. That's one thing that we see. Second thing, definitely in terms of, the fintech space is ripe with disruptions. So a lot of acceptance by customers on new age products, bite-sized insurance products. To give you an example, things like what the international market is doing, pet insurance. Or, it's like an adventure insurance. I'm going for an adventurous kind of, thing or whatever, and insure me for 2 days, 3 days, kind of a thing for that adventurous activity. So I think these are the things that will really drive growth, because it will have more customer inclusion from that aspect and prospect. And of course, the differentiating, because again, the space is rife with competition. So how are you differentiating yourself? Are you having the right customer proposition? That is one aspect. Are you reaching the right target segments? That's another aspect. So I would say, insurance and financial space is full of opportunities. Now one has to see what niche they play in and all. So that will definitely, I feel, these trends will drive growth in the future. For sure.
Thank you, Sabha. Shalabh, there's a question for you. Your 30, 60, 90 approach or thought process for less than 1,000 employee account to drive growth in today's context.
See, when we say a 30, 60, 90 approach, I think so somebody has worked with us and understands our business model very well. And is an approach to constantly drive the right sales behavior. And when I say a 30, 60, 90 approach is all about engaging with the consumer, telling him about the right things about the products and services that we are offering, making him experience the product before he buys the product. That is the approach that we are following. And that's the reason this approach is very, so even when we have moved from 1,000 people to 4,000 people, we are still doing the same thing, because that has not only given us constant results, but it has also increased our consumer engagement. It has also increased the level of confidence the consumers come to our platform and experience, because they experience the same level before they buy the product and after they buy the product. So this approach has constantly, when you say, yielded results, not only for us, but if you look into any B2C segment, when you talk about to Sabha also, or any financial segment, there's a certain number of connects that you have to do. certain number of people whom you have to speak to, and post that you have to certain number of people to whom you should do a demo about the product, because we are selling a service. When I say selling a service, it is something that a person has to experience before he buys the same. So that is something that we're talking about.
Thank you, Shalabh. Thank you for answering the question. Prashant, the similar question is for you also. How would you strategize client conversion over a time period of 30 days versus 60 days versus 90 days?
Well, it would be very different for different industries. For our line of business, which is very consultative sales, I think, probably the sales cycle could be as long as 6 months, right? When you're talking about large transformation, those things also 60, 30, 60, 90 is a good framework, but it may not necessarily be relevant in every industry, in every scenario. So you need to be cognizant of that. But and this whole funnel management concept in terms of what happens in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days is again, there's new wisdom in terms of whether that now works or not. But in my mind, it's a great, because again, it's, there are lead indicators and there are lag indicators, right? If you control your lead indicators, the lag is an outcome, right? And that's why the whole concept, and Salah mentioned in terms of what should happen in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, how many, and that's what you try to control. Everything else being equal, right? Then the outcome is a natural. So everything being equal, so that's the whole concept that you follow. In our industry, in the high value consulting space, whether that applies, it does apply in some form of the format, but it's not necessarily 30, 60, 90, because we'll be really lucky if something major happens in 30, 60. At times it's much longer than that, but the concept is still relevant, and every industry will have its own in terms of what it's very personal to every industry, every business model.
Sabha, there's a question for you, that how is your employee engagement activities changing with work from home?
So one of the things that when we were speaking to people, we realized very early was that the work from home was, the people were missing the social connects that were happening. So we, of course, got people onto platforms and had a lot of interactions ongoing, because those one-on-one conversations that people were really missing on. So we got those one-on-one conversations going on, and social conversations also going on through several activities that we've undertaken through the year. So we never left our employees alone. We were constantly talking to them and very much customizing to what they were saying. So, it was very important to understand and listen to them. Things like, virtual induction, we did it again very, very early on. Things like learning and development, we invested really, really well in terms of several programs, very customized again. And so they were not like generic programs, which I would think is like, should be disbursed to employees. But that was more coming from employees themselves. And of course, the use of digital tools and technology to connect people to the fabric of the organization was there. And so I think these are the trends that will continue on, that how much are you really listening to your employees? Because again, that translates to what we said earlier, a customer behavior as well. How much are you listening to people and then customizing solutions as to what they want, whether it is engagement, whether it is training, or whether it is their own career progression, their own career development. I think virtually life has just gone on, and I would say it has gone on in a more focused manner.
Shalabh, there's a question for you. It is agreed that the sales team has to be agile. At the same time, in most cases, they are sandwiched between customers and business managers. What specific interventions are important to help them, or to help them stay agile?
So when you say agile, one is that constant training that is there. So the way I said that we have a constant training desk, which has different chapters or different matters being discussed on a daily basis, hourly basis, as a matter of fact. We have a constant sales help desk, which keeps on helping resolving customer queries or interventions that are required to consume the service. When you say agile, so what we look at it is that how fast a person is upgrading from one part to the other. So when I say upgrading, is that we give him a certain set of tools, certain set of targets, how fast he's moving on to that. So agility is something that comes from how we support him. When I say support him in terms of what he would like to learn, in terms of what he would specifically like to do. So, for example, we segregate people in terms of classes that he's interacting with. So there are different empathy levels that are required to deal with different type of parents and kids. So that is there. We have different teams. So, for example, certain products are not sold by the central team, not sold by the FOS team. They're sold. So there we convert some of those into leads, and then they are given to a central set of team, which is very, very specific to those products. For example, coding. Now, that is where agility in terms of understanding what he's able to sell, what he will be able to cater to a consumer, that has become very important in terms of agility. And that is what we clearly focus on and we align our sales team to.
There's a question for Prashant. How do you look into competitor analysis in these changing times, given the fact that the businesses are to remain relevant and competitive at the same time? And what are the risk analysis you consider?
So when things are, evolving from, I think these are times where you have to unhook from the competition completely. I mean, this competitor analysis is a great thing, but in times like these, unhook from the competition is what I focus on to whom you're selling, customer. Because if you focus too much in terms of what your competition is doing, probably the competition is also completely lost. They are also trying to figure out, right? So, I mean, if you're trying to find wisdom there, you may not get that wisdom at all. The wisdom will be at the customer's end. So competition analysis in times like these may be overrated. The effort has to be in terms of analyzing customer needs. So competition analysis is secondary. Customer analysis is more important. Understand the way their business models are emerging, understand the forces, the dynamics, and I'll tell you one more thing. In fact, don't analyze your customer, analyze your customer's customer, right? So if I'm going and selling a sales transformation or any consulting to Sabha, probably my understanding of Sabha's business model is important, but I need to understand Sabha's, my customer's customer, how Sabha's customers are behaving. If I focus there, then probably my ability to go and talk intelligently to Sabha will be that much more. I hope I'm making sense. I don't, so that is in today's day and age more important in my mind. So, the competition, the traditional competition analysis is great, but don't get too, it may lead you in a completely different path, so focus on your customer and your customer's customer is what I would say.
Sorry to add just one more thing to Prashant what said. Clearly agree with him because the consumer is becoming very intelligent. He talks to because there's a lot of time and people are ready to engage at any point of time. So he has a lot of bandwidth. There is a lot of process that has gone into decision making. So the customer is talking to each and every person who is able to offer that service. And our job is as salespeople is to present our service and to align our services to his needs. Once we are able to do it, it will be the consumer because I think the relationships have gone or taken a backseat right now. It is more about what people understand in terms of what organization is offering to the other organization, and it has become very, very important and relevant. So in our scheme of things also, there are multiple people, those who are offering the same set of services.
Yeah.
And if we start talking about competition, we lose it. Mm-hmm. So we never talk about competition. We only present our set of services to the consumer. That is what I totally agree with Prashant on this. This has changed. I think so this is the major change that has happened in the last 1 year.
I'm very happy that, we got a chance to even talk about this point. Otherwise, maybe we would have just maybe it would have got skipped. Sabha, any other closing remark from you?
I think very clearly Prashant Shalabh put it nicely on the customer piece, and I would second that up. That if you're going to look at intelligence, I would say instead of doing competition studies, do customer studies, do empathy studies to understand the unmet needs of the customer, and that's something that one of my previous experiences, and there's so many insights that come in, whether from a product perspective, whether from a service perspective, or wherever you get so many things that you can bring into the organization. And then as an organization, you're so much more relevant to the customer in the evolving time. With limited budgets, where do you actually go? I would say go to the customer directly. And Prashant rightly pointed out, customer, the entire ecosystem needs to be understood in that entire frame of things. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
Thank you, Sabha. I'm conscious we have to end this discussion now. With this, we also come to the end of a 2-week celebration of the Smart HR series with Right Management to multiple fireside chats and panel discussions. In this association, we've been able to highlight multiple futuristic workplace trends on employee experience, the role of psychological safety in creating an innovative culture, agile and winning talent strategies, and today relooking at market engagement. We've had some of the industry's biggest names as the speakers, and all of you who would want to check out these videos, they are archived on the Smart HR page on ETHR World website. You can revisit them. We can recall all the insights that have been shared by all the industry leaders. Thank you, Prashant, Sabha, and Salabh for joining us today for this panel discussion.